And you have that same sense here, but in this case, the movement is coming from the natural world. With the wild animals like the boars, you see the leaves kind of floating through the air, and you'll notice things like squirrels and lizards running around on the ground.
動きっていうのが敵だったんですけど、今回では動きもまた同じような動きがあるんですけど、それは敵ではなく自然のものであったりのが多いですよね。森もね、ものすごくですね、葉っぱの数がすごい多いですし、でこれ昔から我々8ビットのね、こう平面のスクリーンを使いながらゲームを作ってきたけど、足音がそれらしく聞こえるようにいろんな足音をつけたりして雰囲気はですね、もう本当に今絵もですけども音も含めてすごく自然に自分が自然の中にいるっていうのを書けるようになりましたね。鳥が鳴きましたね。So just as you heard the bird there, in an original Zelda, we were looking at obviously 2D screen. That's what we were working with, and so to create some depth, we did things with the audio, like having different footsteps with different surfaces to create that depth. But now everything's there, not only visually but orally too. So it's really just it's almost like you're in the wilderness and you're just experiencing it for yourself. Chico, you're pretty good. Please don't pressure me, Mr. You know, I usually stay far away and shoot with arrows. Chico didn't have any arrows.
If I did, yeah, I'd use arrows better. Now I have. So Miyamoto-san, if you could tell our viewers a little bit more about the extent of your involvement in Breath of the Wild and the kind of things that you've been involved in.
宮本さんの本作のいつもと同じようにね、最近僕エグゼクティブプロデューサーってつくと思うんですけども、実はその都度いろんな役割をしてて、まではエグゼクティブプロデューサーと書いてあるディレクターと一緒にディレクティングをしてるというところまで入ってたんですよ。今回はね、本当にリンクの基本的な動きとか自然とのやり取りとか、それから特に本当に自然に見えるかどうかという監修とか、そういうところに徹してて、あとお金の手配とか、本当に現場がどんどん今一緒に作ってきた青沼さんと藤林さんとかディレクターたちと、それからプログラマーとかデザイナーがみんなでこれを作ってくれてる。So I think my position will end up being executive producer on this title as well, but I have been in the past, but in past Zelda titles I took on a lot of different roles as well. Even though I was the executive producer, I did a lot of things that maybe a director would have, but this time around my involvement is really focused on just making sure that Link's movement is natural and his interaction with the environment, with nature, is natural, and that it's all a smooth experience, and really all the details I've left it really up to Mr. Aonuma and Mr. Fujibayashi, and of course all the designers and programmers. This is a really collaborative effort on everyone's behalf. And then I also look after the financials too.
I was actually curious, you mentioned when Chico was fighting the problem with the axe there that your approach would have been probably to shoot from a distance. A little bit more about how your approach has been in this game?
先ほど宮本さんが自分はこういうことが有利にやってるとおっしゃったんですが、そういった違うゲームプレイができるということですね、このゲーム。
Before you jump into that, I just have to point out how much this reminds me of the original meat item in the original NES Zelda game.
It's gotten so big. 本当にね、さっき冗談で言ってた裸のでガノンまで行こうかとかいう話をしてたんですけども、それぐらいどんな遊び方もできるようになってます。だから一人の敵ともどの武器を使ってもいいし、敵の武器を奪って使って本当に自分の武器が壊れてそうせざるを得ない時もあるぐらいいろんな戦い方があります。Before the stream started, we were kind of joking around. You can probably take on Ganon with just as he is in the Noon, and you really can do that. That's how much freedom this game offers. So you can use all different kinds of weapons for all different kinds of enemies. You can take their weapons and use it against them. So it really does open up to any kind of gameplay style that you prefer.
It also opens up a lot of different possibilities in terms of how you want to approach things like that, or puzzle solving. In certainly the more recent 3D Zelda games, generally when you found yourself faced with a puzzle, there's one solution. Whereas in this game, even as we've been playing in the treehouse, we've found that different people have very different approaches in terms of how they want to try to solve puzzles. And I think Chico is taking a slightly different approach here to how she wants to do some combat.
Actually, now we're here.
風がすごい吹いてるので敵の方に燃え広がっていく。
So like you see here, the wind is going towards the enemies who just use the fire to take it back to where the enemy is.
Let's talk a little bit about how fire played an interesting role in the original Legend of Zelda as well.
That's right. This is, I think, the first time in a while that Link is able to use really fire as a weapon in a lot of different ways. In the original NES Zelda game, you could burn bushes and find things there, and I'm sure a lot of all of you probably spent a lot of time burning every bush in the game.
Especially Bill. Bill loves burning things.
爆弾も好き。
He loves bombs too.
That's right. So I think maybe what we're going to do here is switch to a slightly different save data, and we're going to look at a slightly different area of the plateau here.
So I'm curious, Miyamoto-san, as we're moving on to another section of the game, it must be a really interesting experience having been involved in a series for this long and over this many iterations. Have you found that there are things that you wished you could have had in the original Legend of Zelda game that you've been able to realize over the course of the series?
今までいろいろな携わってきた宮本さんなんですが、今回で、初代のゼルダでできなかったことを組み込みたかったっていうのはあるんですね。
いや現場のメンバープログラマーとデザイナーたちがこう自然をそのまま自然として作り直そうということにすごいチャレンジをしてて、僕はこのネタがこうなるというよりそれ全体が理想的だなと思ってただけなんですね。だから僕のアイデアをこうして作ってくれって言ったことはなくて、現場がどんどんものを作っていくっていう感じです。
You know, the programmers and the designers, instead of kind of trying to make one spec or one level, they tried to really recreate nature as in the game. And within that step, there's a lot of things that came up. And so there wasn't anything that I specifically requested. It all came from the development, the programmers and the designers.
でこう拡張していく自然に大きなものが出来上がっていくという方にざっとものが進んでいくんですけど、意外とそれができていくことで細かいディテールの部分が仕上がっていって、でディテールを見ると意外と新しい発見があるんですね。どうも動きそうな岩と動かなさそうな岩が見てなんとなく雰囲気で分かるとかね。
So now, as we're trying to create this massive world, we notice that during that step, we realize a lot of the small, minute details are being polished as well. So when you're playing the game, you know there's all these details and things that you just kind of notice and stumble upon. For example, like when you look at pieces of rock or stone, some of them you kind of know that you can't move, and some of them look suspiciously movable, and you just kind of have this feeling.
I just don't have anything near me. Oh, wait. There's one.
I mean, it definitely is such a rich,
Maybe not.
immersive experience. It feels so good. Bill bringing up the chunk of meat looking like the one from the NES reminded me of, that was one of my first great video game moments as a kid, was going into that cave scene, Rumble, and being like, oh, okay, here's a puzzle. This is something to figure out. And then remembering, because I had the manual memorized at that point, because that was all the literature we had back then. I was like, oh, I bet you he's hungry. Oh, there's meat there. It's just like my first little light bulb going off. I still remember that moment very clearly.
初代ゼルダで肉を与えるパズルがあったんですけど、それを初めて解いた時に本当に自分の中でやったっていう感覚が出て、本当ゼルダのアイテムゲットのそれの中でした。
Yeah, this was an example of, in the original NES Zelda game, sometimes there were those conspicuous spots where you knew you could place a bomb. In that game, sometimes you had to tap the wall to see if the sound was different. But here in Breath of the Wild, it's really interesting because they've done such a very good job, as Miyamoto was pointing out, of how the walls are designed in a way that they give you a little bit of a hint that maybe you can blow it up, but there have also been plenty of times where I've had to experiment and see if it actually can happen.
おっしゃったように見た目で分かるところもあれば、でも実際にやってみると分からない。
そうですね、雰囲気で分かるところもある。
Yeah, it's kind of a gut feeling you have when you look at it.
So I'm curious, Miyamoto-san, have you been surprised as you watch members of the dev team play this game, seeing the different approaches they take, or maybe them playing the game in ways that other members of the team didn't really expect?
開発現場を見てた宮本さんの中で、開発者がこれをプレイしていろんなプレイの仕方があるんですけど、こういったプレイの面白かったとか、他の人はこういったプレイをしないだろうなっていうプレイの仕方など見ましたでしょうか。
そうですね、まだ攻略しきれてないので分かんないんですけども、例えば馬を使ってどの乗り物でどういう武器を使って遊ぶとか、それからすごく上手になると時計を止めるスローにするプレーをするとスローになるんですね。そういうところを上手い人のを見てると参考になって。
So I actually haven't beat the game, so there's a lot that I'm still discovering as well. But I'm just looking at some of the development team play this, how they use different types of vehicles and what weapons to use when they're riding those vehicles, and then also like the horse basically. And also, when they're really good at playing, like you saw earlier, you can go into the slow motion effect. So high level gameplay is really I learned a lot from it.
だからこの登るんですけどね、ここ体力で登りきれないかも分かんないですけど、登る方法とか登らずに裏側から行くとか、例えば敵の砦なんかでも正面から行くには裏側から入っていったり、だからこれからいろんなワープとかいろんな技ができてくると、いろんなルートがあるんですね。
So even with climbing, you got to keep an eye out for the stamina gauge, so you make sure that you have places to rest when you, or maybe you could just go all the way around and go from back. Likewise, when you're maybe attacking the enemy camp, you don't need to go from it. You can go back around and attack from the backside. So really, there's a lot that, and as more and more features get unlocked, there's a lot of more ways to play the game and solve these puzzles.
Now, Miyamoto-san, one of the inspirations that you had for The Legend of Zelda came from your early days in the Boy Scouts. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
はい、今聞こえましたそうですね、昔ね、最初のゼルダを作ってる時に、子供の頃ボーイスカウトでね、いろんなハイキングをしたり、それからオリエンテーリングをしたりで、それで山の上に登って、その山の上にすごい湖があってすごい感動したことを思い出したんですね。だからその頃の思い出でゼルダを作ったり、ゼルダを遊んでて思い出したで、そのシーンがさらに拡大されて、山に実際自分が行ってあるところから、そこまでしましょう
So, when I was a child, I was in the Boy Scout and I used to go do hiking and orienteering. And there was a time when I was climbing a mountain and it cleared up into this beautiful lake. And I saw a scene similar to that original Zelda. It brought back to that. And now looking at this Zelda, it's even more grander than it was before.
だからルートを攻略しながらこう山の上まで行って、でこっちへ行く目的地があるんですけど、ちょっとこっちにもあって行った時にいつ戻ればいいのかだんだんになってくるけど、意外とそれがね、短時間の間にいろんなシミュレーションができるのがこの第一の魅力だと思います。
And when you're climbing a mountain, you have a destination, but then something strikes your interest, so you kind of go off the path. Then there's a lot of interesting things out there, but then you start to wait. When am I supposed to go back? Am I going to be able to go back? But then that kind of feeling is recreated here. And what's great about this game is within a short period of time, you're able to really explore a lot, and there's a lot to explore in this.
And that's one of the things that I love about the game is that just like the original NES Zelda game, it's very easy to kind of wander off your path or get lost in the world and find yourself in an area where the enemies are way beyond your skill level. And then you've got to try to fight it out, or if you want to try to turn around.
初代ゼルダには自由に行けるので、ちょっと強すぎるところに行ってしまって、どうやって戻るか分かんなくなる。
そうですね。いや、これあれですよね、今チコさんうちわでこのブのうちわで船を進めてますけどね。
So Chico's waving the fan with the cork fan to move forward in the raft here.
こういう今度自分で進める引っかかってる。
引っかかってますね。
自分で進めるイカだっていうのはね、これ今物理と計算で引っかかってしまってるんですけども、初 8ビットの頃からもう行かなくなったら進むとか内輪で青とかいうネタはいろいろあるんですけども、今回そういう漫画のようなこと、嘘のようなこと漫画のようなことを全部本物の物理でやるとすごい新しい魅力があるんですね。こんなこと起こるわけないんですけど、嘘のような本当をやる。
You know, like when Chico is stuck there, it's because of the physics engine of this game. But then, you know, obviously you can't actually swing a fan and propel yourself on a raft. And these are all kind of comic book-like effects. But taking that and applying that into a physics engine creates this whole new experience. It's very fun to watch.
Of course, in the original NES Zelda game, Link somehow had a raft that he carried around with him. But in this case, you'll have to find the raft in the lake and ride it across.
そうですね。だから見つけたのにこっちは思ってる慌てて取りに行か
You
れ
know,
て
you might find the raft and you realize, oh no, I don't have a fan, so you gotta go back and go grab it.
I'm hoping that maybe working on this game has given the members of the development team maybe a budding interest in hiking and maybe joining you on a trip. I think like a dev team field trip sounds like it would be amazing once everybody's had a chance to play this game.
Some team building.
チームビルディング、調査で開発ハイキング行ったりとか、ラフティング行ったりとか楽しそうですね。
はい、そうですね。
Yeah, that'd
Maybe
be
hide
great.
copies of the game and they have to go hunt them out around.
ちょっと難しいと思います。
Oh, it's tough enemies.
Oh, Chico's on
Shake it
ice.
off, Chico, shake it off.
I have like four moves.
僕はね、こういう矢を使って戦うとかね、するとね、必ずその後で矢を拾って回る。
You know, when I arrows to fight enemies, I always make sure to pick up all the arrows that I use.
特にミスして打ったやつは後から拾ってやつ。
Especially the ones that I miss, I go back and grab them.
だから数が少なくなってくると敵にわざと打たせて、敵が打ったやつを後から集めて回る。
But when I start running out of arrows, I let the enemy shoot arrows at me and then go and grab those and make it my own.
すごい慎重なプレー。
I'm very a cautious player.
It's very economical.
Absolutely.
That may surprise you, but I'm somewhat of a reckless player.
We've seen that.
We all know.
He goes chopping up some firewood here.
I wonder if I have flint though.
This is actually one of the other things that I love about the game is that, you know, certainly in the original 8-bit Zelda game, the team did an amazing job of using the limited color palettes and the limited graphics of the time to depict a very fully realized world with a lot of different terrain. And we see that again here in Breath of the Wild, but to an exponential degree. And we see it just in the style of trees that we've seen so far, with the forest down below to the fir trees up here in the mountains. It's really impressive.
初代のゼルダでは限られた色と限られたグラフィックスでやってたんですが、それで実現された世界ですから、7割ぐらいいろいろな種類があって、木だけでもいろんな種類があって、すごい。
森に行くと本当に森のように見えるし、森に行くとキノコとかたくさんあるんですよね。
So if you go to the forest, it does look like a forest. You can get things like mushrooms from the forest.
おお、かかった。
It goes without saying, but it really is. This game is so beautiful. It looks so good.
美しいゲームですね。
Yes, I might use the current, so I can't go.
Yeah, so
Miyamoto-san, since we were talking about the fact that you've been really involved in making sure that all the animations and the movement feels really good, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the temperature system in your because that's really interesting as far as how it affects Link as he's traveling through the world.
先ほどリンクが自然に動けるっていうのを監修されてたっておっしゃっていたんですが、温度に関してもどのように影響されるかについてお話しいただきます。
これはもうほとんど現場のディレクターたちが作ってもう山の上の方に行くと気温が低くなるので、そうするとちょっと暖かくなれるものを食べたらとかで、今度のゲームは服もねものすごい種類の服があるんですけども、それ暑いところと寒いところのために準備したり、それからそれを食べ物で補うっていうアイデアも入ってるんですね。
You know, so this is actually an idea that came up just entirely from the development team. So as, for example, as you're climbing a mountain, the taller you go, the higher you go, the colder it gets. So you have to prepare yourself by eating food that gives you cold resistance. And this game has a plethora of different clothes that you can wear. And so that helps you prepare for any kind of environment that you're going towards. And then so there's an element of preparing yourself by having the right clothes, and there's also an element of preparing yourself by eating the right food.
I feel like this probably all harkens back to your Boy Scout days some way yet again.
またボーイスカウトの時代を
Being
思い出す
prepared. Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. Always be.
It's like the animation when it's cold and you look at it and it just feels so
Oh,
real.
when you're shivering, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just torturing him
Deep
by taking
chattering.
his clothes off.
Yeah.
ここで言わないもん
So don't take your clothes off here.
Sure. I think people like that. Playing. If he wasn't wearing boots and he's cold, you actually see his toes get red as he's shivering and you're I'm so sorry.
Mr. Miyamoto, was there anything else you wanted to add in terms of the stories of the development game or anything related to this game?
初代の開発についてのお話であったり、今回の開発についてのお話だったりありますでしょうか。
そうですねいろいろ現場とやり取りをして結構ね僕は今度ね食べ物の材料の習得すごい多いんですねでアイテムの数もすごい多いんですでそれをこの組み合わせこの組みでいろんな組み合わせを楽しむっていうのはみんな好きみたいで僕その面倒くさくて嫌っていうふうに結構対立しながら作ってたんですけどもだんだんと仕上がってくると今までのゼルダっていうのはルピーを集めるんですけどルピー集めると使い道がないとか言われたんですけどそれがね結構厚みを持ったので、ルピーを集める以外のものも集めてルピーに置き換えたりしながら本当にバランスのいいゲームになってきたと思います。
So as for, there was a lot of back and forth with the dev team, and there's a lot of items, a lot of ingredients that you can collect, and I'm kind of a lazy person, so it's kind of a pain to mess with all that, and so there was a little back and forth with the development team, but as it's becoming more and more polished, I realize there's a lot of fun, a lot of joy to be had in there, and there's just really a lot you can do with all of the options that you have in this game.
Speaking of options, check it out. Nice moves, Chico.
Well, thank you, Miyamoto, so much for joining us and sharing